Live from parts unknown, you're listening to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast, the only wrestling podcast on the planet, we think. Sit back, relax, prepare for positivity to run through your veins as Simon Miller gives you your weekly dose of powerful pro wrestling audio. It is Miller Time.
Hello and welcome to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Simon Miller and this is a Pro Wrestling Podcast. Thank you to everyone that joins me each and every week. We did a couple of shows live on YouTube actually this week. You can check out over at my YouTube channel. Just search for Simon Miller. That's the best way to do it. You'll see my stupid face and you can subscribe. Mostly because I want to start trying to do, if you don't know, the main show as I call it, in the week we always do live on YouTube. And I'm trying to find a good time that works for everybody. So keep an eye out for some evening shows in terms of my time over here, so BST around about 8 p.m. BST, and you can join in them. But of course, the other thing that we always do is, all of my personal projects are supported by patreon.com/Simon Miller 316. You can head there now and check out some tiers and some rewards you can get back. But I like to get people on the podcast because I find it quite fascinating. And if you've been following the podcast for a while, you know how interesting these chats get. And it's always good when we get someone brand new on. And that's what we've got today. It's my man, Tim, all the way from the United States of America. How you doing, Tim?
What's going on, Simon? I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, dude. I'm very, very well. Like I said, we had a quick chat before we began. It's a pleasure to have you on. Let's not... We are going to talk about your origins and your... how you fell into this crazy thing called pro wrestling. But just to keep it as topical as possible, you were at Raw on Monday, which I think is especially cool because you got to experience Bray Wyatt. And I mean, the coolest thing about wrestling is that we can do these nuts things like this, and even though it makes no sense for anyone that doesn't watch it, we all get it and we all accept, such as the fact that, Undertaker can shoot lightning bolts from his from his fingers. But of course, I think sometimes those segments are aimed, from a production point of view anyway, are aimed at a television audience. I don't actually think I've ever been lucky enough to go to a show that ties in live, especially. Basically, how was it? Did it have the same feel? Did you watch it back on TV later on and think, oh no, it was better on that? Just walk me through it and let me know what you thought of the show as a whole.
Well, the Bray thing was awesome. I mean, I'm a big Finn guy, so it hurt me a bit to have to watch Finn take the beating on that one. But it was awesome. I mean, I kind of knew it was coming because you kind of saw the setup, but it was everything I was going to hope it was going to be. I mean, the lights going out was perfect, and it did get dark, and it was awesome. I mean, just to see him out there finally, and I was so happy the mask was there, that he wasn't just Bray, dressed up kind of partially, or he takes the mask off. It was everything I'd hoped it be. I mean, it was amazing. I loved it. I think it's lived up to the hype of the Firefly Funhouse. I mean, he built it up so well, and all the splits between him being, good and evil kind of in that, it worked out, and it was amazing. It really was, and the crowd loved it. It was phenomenal.
What do we do with him now? There's a question. I know it's hard, but because the cool thing, I think, like you say, there was a lot of question marks around it. The mask being the biggest one. What do we do with the mask? Does he wear the mask? Does he not wear the mask? Is he going to be two different characters when he cuts promos? Does he wear the mask? So on and so forth. How do we transition him into having a wrestling match? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, he is going to have a program with Finn Balor. He's probably going to beat him at SummerSlam. I mean, do you have him on Raw? Do you deliberately not have him on Raw because you think that's going to stoke, it's going to keep him more interesting, right? Like, I think, given the way we've done this, we do have an opportunity, and I know it's a bit of a cliche thing to say, you'll have to forgive me, but we have hit the reset button, and we do have an opportunity to make him the new version of The Undertaker. And what I mean by that is we can have a gimmick that doesn't bleed through to the real world. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's only really been the last 2 years that we've learnt more about Mark Calloway's. He's done an interview here and there and joined Instagram. We could kind of do that with Bray Wyatt, and he does seem to be, like a guy that would be up for it. But how do you balance that then, not only with a modern-day pro wrestling world, but also, like I say, with matches and cutting promos and being on a show every single week? I mean, what do you want to see him do?
Well, I think you can almost approach it more how they brought in Kane with The Undertaker. Kane was this whole didn't really speak, so you don't have to. I mean, you can always have Bray be Bray, where he was the Firefly Funhouse part of it. I guess if they want to do that split aspect of it and have him just come down to the ring as like the Fiend and just destroy people. But I mean, they did Kane really well with the Undertaker aspect of it, because I don't know if I'd really want to put Bray at this point. I know we're rebooting, but he's not the Undertaker yet. So I'd put him more towards the Kane aspect of it, and you could have him, if he just pops up, if it's gonna be in line with just Finn, and he's gonna be feuding with Finn, and Finn's gonna take his break. I would really hope more or less that they don't. I don't want them to bring out the Demon for SummerSlam, and then have them just like beat the Demon more or less. I almost rather let Finn take his break, and then kind of build Bray up a little bit more by whoever he's taking out, and then when Finn comes back, they could set up for maybe like I don't know, Royal Rumble or something like that, and then have the Demon go against Bray, and then if he loses at the Demon, he loses at the Demon. I just don't want it to be where it's going to be Finn gets just beat up every week and then loses at SummerSlam, takes his vacation, and we lose everything. So I don't know if they're going to do Finn, however they do it. If they're going to have him just pop up, he could just pop up. It doesn't have to be every week. Listen, Brock doesn't have to show up every week, and he's a champ. So, and I love Brock. I'm one of the only people that's cheering for Brock while he's out there, But
you and me both, brother. You and me both.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's the greatest thing. He doesn't have to have the Money in the Bank to do his boombox anymore. Now he just does it with a title. It's awesome. So he doesn't have to be on. I don't want it to get stale. So I think him pop, and I honestly think, if it's just he's gonna go dark every now and again and pop up and take somebody out, that's great. It just can't be every week. It can't be predictable. I kind of had that feeling. Obviously, kind of like I said, I saw the setup, but I kind of had that feeling once Finn was in the ring by himself, what was coming and lights going, and so it can't be that predictable all the time, which WWE tends to do. Once they get on something that worked once, they're just gonna stick to it. And, then you get bored of it a little bit, and they're like, no, you guys liked it the first time, so it's going to keep going. So I don't know. I don't think he necessarily has to do cut promos. I think he could just, if he does a pop up in the ring, but it's just got to be, you got to pick your spots. It can't just be every week he pops up and takes somebody out, because it's not like a run-in. This is like a setup thing, and it's got to go dark and do this and do that. And so I think they have to spread him out, at least in the beginning, and then how they go about him when he's more, established again as like a true star, and then being in. I don't know how they do him for the rest of the time, because do they have him do promos as Bray? That's the thing, and I'm looking forward to actually finding out, and I'm looking forward to see if he's on one brand or both, because how that works, wild card rule and all.
Oh yeah, this very special wild card rule that we can never break is really important. It's so dumb. It's so dumb, like Cesaro on SmackDown going, I know I'm a Raw guy. Shut up, Cesaro. You're just a WWE guy. Don't be ridiculous. No, I agree with you, man. I think the really interesting thing is absolutely because we don't know a lot about the character still. How much is the Firefly Funhouse version of Bray a part of the performance, I guess? We don't know. We have absolutely no idea. Is it more of a Fiend type of a thing? And the only way we're going to find out, obviously, is when we get ticking. But I am intrigued, and like I said, I did like it. I think the fact you got to see it live was awesome. That's definitely something you can look back on. I agree with you.
It was amazing.
I agree with you with the Demon as well. We don't need to rush this stuff. Finn can just lose. We don't have to job the Demon out just because it's something to do. We can come to that as and when it makes sense. How did you find the show as a whole? Because I actually quite enjoyed Raw. Like I say, it wasn't perfect, and there was certainly some odd thing. Actually, what we should talk about, given that you were part of the crowd, is that women's match. I just thought about that now as we were talking, because obviously the crowd certainly. Well, they didn't like it.
Oh yeah, they turned.
They didn't like it at all.
Well, I think a lot of that had to do with, to me, reading it as I was going in and seeing the kind of the matches they were announcing, like the Battle Royal and then the 4-way. It was more like you're just putting in these people again. Like Carmella's already had a run with a title. Natty's been around forever, but she's not the most relevant at this point. I guess you bring in Naomi, okay, and she's the only one that I can think, oh, okay. And Alexa Bliss literally just wrestled at a pay-per-view for the SmackDown title. So it's why I was more disappointed in the fact that they weren't bringing in anybody fresh. I was really kind of part of me was oh, well, maybe did Sasha come back and she's going to somehow be a part of this? Because you just want something fresh. And so that was disappointing. I think maybe some of the crowd was oh, nobody really wants to see any of these people fight Becky, but okay. And then the match just seemed very confusing. I I sitting there I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was awful. I was actually very shocked, and I kept on looking to Becky because I was sitting actually to her right, and I was looking to Becky to see how her reactions to the crowd were, and she didn't actually seem angry at the awful chants. But I don't know if she was just kind of staying a character, but she wasn't. She was turning to her right to make face, like to do expressions where she was away from the camera, and she didn't like disagree, I guess. But it wasn't awful. It just was long. Like, I get given them time, and that's amazing. And they had the longest match of the entire night, but you knew it was the longest match of the entire night. And there just wasn't really any spots. Like, you're going to put a match, you want some pretty decent spots. You want some, it was just, hey, we're going to throw you out of the ring. We're going to run around. I'm going to throw you out. You're going to run around. You're going to do a split, and this is that. And then it just seemed like it was just chaotic. And it didn't seem to be as organized as you would have hoped it would have been, especially for what it was setting up. But I didn't hate it. It was just long. I think it was just the fact that it was so long, and you didn't put in, nobody's going to, obviously, this isn't like you're putting in Ember Moon and Asuka and Kairi Sane to do this, where you're going to get big spots. You're just having wrestlers in there. You eliminated Carmella like right off the bat. So that's part of the, all right, one's gone. And then now it's these three, and Alexa's running around and hiding out with Nikki. And I was hoping Nikki would actually play a little bit more of a part in it. But aside from being beat up by Natty for no reason at one point, at least from what I could see, but it just seemed a little disorganized, maybe rushed. I don't know, but it wasn't awful. I felt bad when that chant came out. At first I was like, are they saying this is awesome? Because it's far from awesome. And then I was like, oh no, they're saying awful. And it wasn't awful. And I don't disagree with Alexa's tweet. But at the same time, listen, you're an athlete, you're a professional at this. You got to take some criticism too. You can't just be upset about it. You just, all right, we didn't do our best, get them next time. But it wasn't great.
No, I agree with it. I think if you put yourself, and I'm talking from experience here, if you put yourself in the public eye, you got to be happy when someone says great job, and you just got to, swallow it when somebody says you're a piece of crap. You just do. That's the world we live in. It's. I understand where she's coming from. Like you say, I understand the hypocrisy to a certain point of view, but we live in a very reactionary culture, and nobody right then was thinking, thank goodness they've given the women more time. They're just thinking, I hate this.
Yeah, and it wasn't even
so I'm going to make a noise.
Because people's like, oh, it's because it's because it was the women in there, and that's why everybody's no. If this was a four-way with the guys, I mean, guys get this is awful chant all the time. If any match had gone on that long with no excitement to it, they all would have gotten the same thing. It was just, I was happy they got time. It was great. I think when you put Becky down at ringside and you have them in there, I think people just kind of, you've just been trained now to expect, is Becky going to run in? Is something going to happen? And it was just like a lot of running around and not much payoff in the end, So.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. No, I think that's fair. But look, hey-ho, we're past it now. We'll continue to look forward. Could you, because it's come out the last couple of days that apparently the big influence of Paul Heyman on the show is less scripted promos in the back, more, make them feel more realistic, and obviously pay off not only storylines, but pay off the idea that if somebody loses, it's not just a win next week. There are actual consequences. Now, at the moment, we don't know if that's going to happen. The best example is Braun Strowman, because Braun Strowman had a ruptured spleen and was back in 2 weeks. and there is this long-touted rumor, I guess is the best word to put it, that Vince McMahon believes if you are a top star, quote unquote, that you should never look weak. Hence why if you are involved in a big angle, when you come out on Raw or SmackDown, the following day, following week, following whatever, you don't want to show too much pain, which I find crazy because the best characters and the best shows they're vulnerable, right? That's the whole point, but that's
Absolutely.
neither here nor there. But could you, because at the moment I think there are small, for example, I can't remember the two people that cut promos now, but there were two people, I think it was Samoa Joe and Finn Balor, I believe, who did just cut promos in the back, talking to camera, and they sounded a little bit less, I mean, still sounded ridiculous, but they sounded a little bit less ridiculous. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, maybe that is a shift in the right direction. But in terms of a 3-hour block, sitting down there and watching it, as a guy that's obviously, quite invested in WWE, can you see the changes? Can you smell the changes? Or do you just think the moment was just way too early to tell?
I don't know, because I was excited the first week. We all thought that Paul was officially taking over, which I guess was last Raw or whatever we thought it was. And it was good. But at the same time, is it like that we just assume it was good because we thought Paul Heyman had control? Because if we watch it back, oh my God, it's a little different, but it's not. This week's Raw, I don't know, because I didn't get to see the Samoa Joe and Finn promos. They didn't put them up. I don't know if, I guess that was I don't know if they were doing it coming out of commercial for us and we were dealing with something else, because I don't remember seeing the promos, or if and Nassau Coliseum, by the way, is terrible sound. So half the time you can't hear what they're actually saying when they're in the ring. And it was actually better because I was sitting at ringside, so it was actually being underneath was a little bit better, but usually it's pretty bad trying to hear when they're on mic. I don't know. It didn't feel much different. It felt very Vince. This felt like a Vince show. There was certain different things, but it definitely felt like, I mean, I guess you can't just expect Vince to just go, no, here, take it. I'm going to let go, and you're just going to make this ECW again, and, here we go. Good for you. So I guess Vince doesn't want to completely let go, and I'm sure, obviously, Paul has to run things past Vince before anything happens. So I didn't think it felt amazingly different. There's definitely different aspects to it, and the show, from a live perspective, felt very unorganized. I don't know why. It just seemed like Paul and Brock come down. They cut the promo in the beginning of the show, which is great because Paul's amazing. Then Ricochet comes out. Okay, don't understand what's happening. And then the Revival come out, and Bobby Roode, and then the Usos, which I couldn't figure out. Why would you bring out Ricochet before you brought out, you wouldn't bring out Ricochet?
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That was really strange. I
didn't understand that at all. That just felt sloppy. There was some weird things just seeing it, and having been to shows going, it felt slightly off. And I don't know if there was things going on, but it just, I can't even really put my finger on it, but it just seemed, it seemed a little unorganized, but it was amazing though. Nonetheless, always being there is great. It was a good time, and it just felt off. And watching it back, I kind of rushed through it on Hulu. It still seemed like you said, I heard you talking about Drew McIntyre's, backstage thing. People don't say that, and it's true. It's definitely, there's certain things where it's just just let people talk. I think Roman, when he's kind of off script and talks, I wasn't the biggest Roman guy. I don't hate him, but I was like, oh, this is just going to push this guy forever. And then some days when he would get off script a little bit or would just talk, and I'm like, no, this is great. Be this guy all the time. I don't want to hear about you yard, just talk. And I feel like that's the thing, is everybody's got to have a catchphrase. Everybody's got to be listen, it works for some people. You can be Steve Austin and The Rock. They just knew how to do it. And Jericho, there's people who are amazing at it, and there's people who it seems like it's being forced. And I feel like, listen, just be you. And I know that's not on them to do that, but hopefully Paul allows that some more, because some of these guys naturally are amazing.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's I don't mind somebody dying on their ass. I really don't. I know that sounds crazy. I really don't mind. It's not a bad thing. As long as, the week afterwards, you take that into account and go, okay, well, what do we do now? How do we treat this person? Basically, it's kind of, without wanting to get too political here, it's kind of how I see the education system. The education system works on a group mentality. And I'm always been well, I understand it's finance-based, but we should try and teach the individual, because everyone's got different skills. And that's also how I see professional wrestlers. Samoa Joe, for example, I'd have a lot of confidence to say, hey, Joe, here's what I want you to get across this evening. I'm not going to give you a script, but maybe somebody who's new, maybe a Buddy Murphy. I don't really know if he's a good talker, to be honest, but maybe a Buddy Murphy. I'm like, look, buddy, you need to prove yourself to me. Here's a script. If I think that you do really well with that, eventually I'll let you run your mouth, and then we can go from there. And I think you've summed it up with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns can I know he's not a John Cena, Stone Cold, The Rock level of star, but he is a level of stardom now where he can go out there and say whatever he wants, and people don't even care. It's just Roman Reigns. You know what I mean? It's just Roman Reigns. That's who he is now. He's established. He's got a foundation. Same with Seth Rollins. Paul Heyman would get into that list. AJ Styles, all these guys. Like Ricochet.
And Samoa Joe, I think, is the best. He's amazing.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, don't forget that they gave him a storybook to read. And, he did that storybook, and it was still, the best, most evil promo I've ever heard in my life. I'm like, how is he making a kid's storybook soundless? But that's what he does. That is part of his makeup as a professional wrestler. And, hey, man, we're talking about Paul Heyman. Let's just... let's just call a spade a spade. What's the best thing about Paul Heyman? He plays to a wrestler's strengths. He hides their weaknesses. And I think even if that's the only thing he is able to get past Vince McMahon, it is going to be a huge plus, not only for the company, but for Raw itself. And like I say, man, I miss... And this sounds way too negative than I mean it to, because they do still exist. Like Daniel Bryan did it after Extreme Rules. But I miss... constant amazing promos especially my WWE TV. I feel like if you actually look at one of the huge glaring differences between now and 20 years ago, we do have less good promos. We have better matches, but we have less good promos. So, that's that's something that I would like to see, and I think Paul Heyman is a guy that absolutely can make that happen. But you are right as well about when you go to any WWE live show. Say what you like about them. They're always fun. They're always good. There's a lot going on. I know we had a talk beforehand. You said you didn't really get to see SmackDown, but tying it into some news, as we like to keep the show topical, what do you think about the fact that apparently let me try and find the quote if I can, but apparently Eric Bischoff has started, he started after SmackDown this week, but he's not actually going to have that much influence on creative. Here we go. It's from the Wrestling Observer newsletter, so, if you believe Meltzer, great. If you don't believe him, great. That's up to you to decide. I in terms of a news perspective, he's somebody I trust. However, he said Bischoff was not at Raw SmackDown this week. He started work on the 17th of July. He ended up having no influence on SmackDown this past week, and right now those in creative were told that he will most likely not be involved with the creative process, and that it looks like his job will be interfaced with all the departments in the company as well as Fox. However, he is to be the leader of the SmackDown side of things, as currently it doesn't have a leader. I mean, I've said this in the show we did the other day. I think sometimes, not just in wrestling, fans of anything will create their own expectations and then get upset when those expectations aren't met. And you actually take a step back and you say, wait a minute, I made that up, and now I'm upset this thing didn't happen. But are you surprised to find out that while Paul Heyman is very hands-on in sculpting Raw, this could change every day, it's a wrestling rumor, but are you surprised to hear that potentially maybe Eric Bischoff is there as more of a managerial role as apart from a creative one? Or really, given, his relationship with the business over the last 20 years, it actually probably makes more sense?
I feel like, I guess he's more like a showrunner at this point.
Exactly, totally.
Yeah, so I mean, and I guess they kind of hyped it up, and so that was a little bit more of clickbait for everybody to be like, oh, well, Bischoff's going to be running SmackDown, and Heyman's going to be running Raw. Everybody's going to start watching, and let's watch ratings bump up, and then we'll tell you the truth, and we'll watch Shane come back on for another 3 hours, and we'll be good to go. But I think I guess from that perspective, I would look at, listen, Paul legitimately ran his own company. Like ECW was his. Bischoff was obviously a huge part of ECW. But you had Vince Russo and all that come over there to kind of create. I mean, if they were saying Vince Russo was running SmackDown, which would be a little weird, but I'd be like more like storyline wise. But yeah, I think Bischoff is more of like a public face to that side. Actually works, because people know who he is. He did know what he was doing, and to be more of the showrunner and the go-between works. I just wish, SmackDown lately has always been the better produced show as of late. It seems to have had better storylines. The wrestling seemed to be a little more crisp and better. Although since the wild card thing, that's kind of fallen off a little bit, but SmackDown legitimately kind of became the A show, even though they'll never admit it. So I don't know if they necessarily need somebody to make too many changes. So to use Bischoff as like your face of that side of it, it works, and then you can still get information from him, so I can't see any problem with that. He's been there and done it. Yeah. So I think it works.
What's your opinion of the product in general at the moment? Again, just to give people information that we talked about before we started recording. Obviously, you were well into the Attitude Era, you fell away, came back in 2017. So you've kind of been involved in the last 2 years. Which has been a lot of the
pretty big, yeah.
Yeah, but that is when a lot of the complaining has started. Let's not pretend otherwise. I don't put myself into that bracket, but I as an observer, I can see that's when it has been these last sort of 2 years really when Brock Lesnar doing his whole thing and so on and so forth. But yeah, where are you in terms of not necessarily how much you watch week to week, but just how you feel about WWE in general? Because I guess sometimes, and I'll always say this, I think sometimes maybe, and obviously I can separate the two, but in terms of a general a general viewpoint, I am able to enjoy wrestling, I think, far more than some people because I have a really cool gig where I get to take the mick out of it 24 hours later, which is really fun. That's really fun for me. Like, I'm very blessed to be able to do that. But I also think I can take a step back and I can. I know I can. I can see the pros and the cons. And I also think that then translates into a lot of people being scared, for lack of a better term, of saying they like it because we know what happens when you do that. You get absolutely destroyed. So do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you think we need changes? Are you surprised? Because some people are. Some people are genuinely surprised that WWE is in the state it's in because they love it. They love it each and every week and they're happy.
I mean, listen, it's literally got its ups and downs. I mean, I don't hate it. I mean, I obviously I watch it and I go. I think it's definitely. I'm hoping that they really do move out of the PG thing and kind of move it. I'm not saying they have to go M, but I feel like maybe a little bit more, not adult, but kind of geared more teenish as opposed to kid things. Because that's kind of when I fell out, is when they did move to PG. And it was fine. And I understood it. And I still listen, I don't knock Vince he knows what he's doing. He knows the chair shots and concussions, and he knows that no matter what any other company does, if it's one of his guys that has something severely wrong, it's always going to be there, the standard. So I get it. The performances are great. Live events typically, maybe not TV as much, but to the live events I've been to, the matches are usually always great. There's always something where I guess they're a little bit more free. So maybe if they pulled the restrictions off of them slightly, I'm assuming they must have TV restrictions because there's a definite difference between live shows and TV. And and if they maybe pulled those off a little bit, but the product isn't terrible. They get a bum rap because they're who they are, and they get a bum rap because it's not 1998 again, and there's nobody coming out drinking beer.
True.
You're not going to get the pipe bomb all the time. You're never gonna. You don't have there's only one CM Punk. There's one Rock, there's one Austin. You can't clone everybody to be those people. And right now they don't have that. And they're trying to build it. What got me back into it, honestly, was watching I turned on, I was like, oh, this network, it was a free preview for like WrestleMania weekend or whatever. So I bought the network and I was like, wow, I have the whole thing. I have everything, their entire library. This is amazing. And then I'm like, and I got this pay-per-view. And what actually got me was Bayley. I watched this.
Really, man?
Yeah, I'm a huge, I'm a big Bayley fan. But I watched Bayley, and I watched how they made her this fan, and I watched the whole NXT thing, and I watched her matches with Sasha, and I was like, that's amazing. I'm like, this is, and I started watching a little bit of NXT. If they would let Triple H, and this is what everybody says, produce Raw and SmackDown like he does NXT, they would be fine. And I get that's not going to be a thing, and I'm very happy with NXT because it's my own, hey, I don't need the main roster guys. I can always go in the same company and watch this wrestling here, and I can get my story and my soap opera from the other two. But yeah, I got him back because of Bayley. Then I started watching this thing about Finn. And I was like, wow, this guy. And I'm like, who are these people? And I'm like, they're amazing. The things they can do athletically are leaps and bounds from when I watched like in the 90s and the early 2000s. I'm like, it's not all catchphrases. This is actually wrestling. This is like watching, Chris Benoit and Malenko and Jericho and Kurt Angle and these guys who could technically wrestle, but have athleticism to them. And that was what brought me back in. And then you still have your monsters. You still have Braun and Bobby Lashley and Brock. And, and then now we have Bray. So you have your Undertaker supernatural aspect of it again, and even when Bray was still doing the Wyatt family thing with the maggots and the thing, you still had that sense of horror, I guess, and so I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. I think people just need a reason to be angry. The show's Raw hasn't been Raw, but there's been SmackDown. And then there's live shows. And if you don't like it, then don't watch. And then you have the people who do, so I don't think it's as, it's not terrible. I just think they have to free the wrestlers up a little bit to be more of themselves. And that's really what I think it comes down to. I think they're so overly produced and so overly scripted that it hurts. Like, listen, you can't give Braun a script. You've seen him literally forget what he's supposed to say. Let him just talk. You know what?
Let him just shout, right? Let him shout.
Bobby Lashley, maybe he's not the greatest with a script, but you had Leo Rush and everything was great because that worked out so well. And you gave him mouthpiece, just like Paul Heyman is for Brock, because nobody wants to hear Brock's like high-pitched weird voice all the time, Like, I love Brock, but it's not the most intimidating voice of all time. My girlfriend will even tell you that. She laughs at him every time his mouth opens up, Like, he's not the but you give him somebody and you let him be free. Paul Heyman is obviously free to say what he wants. He's not coming out there on a script. You have guys who are capable. You let them do that. You let them wrestle the way they can wrestle, and, that's it. I just think free him. That's it, free the revival. That's my thing.
What was it about what was it about Bayley that got you? Because that's fascinating. Because I remember at one point everybody was saying when she was down in NXT, if WWE treat this right, and then they'd pause and go, but they won't, because that's WWE fans.
Yeah.
That's joke. But they said there is potential there to maybe make her the female version of John Cena, in the sense that everybody likes her. She's very kid friendly. She can have good matches. You could argue she's a better wrestler than John Cena, actually, to be fair. But what was it for you that stood out when you're flipping through the channel, or like you say, you take WWE's offer up of a free, whatever it was, to watch WrestleMania, you see Bayley. What is it? What's the first thing?
It was her happiness, actually. It was somebody who just was genuinely happy to be where they were and were good at what they did. It was the fact that you would watch like kids' faces in the crowd. Like, there's not that many people who truly can have like that like, it's almost like how Hulk Hogan used to be in a sense. I'm not putting Bayley up in Hulk Hogan's category, but that look where kids, you'd be in awe. And I think it was just the fact that she seems she was one of you. She was a fan, and she's, and she worked to become as good as, look, watch the workouts she does. She busts her ass to be how she is. And I feel like it's always like it paid off. You watch her and you watch her that she knew where she came from, and she appreciates the people who appreciate her, and she gives back. And I think that was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. Like, it's nice to see that. Plus, she can wrestle. She's technically good. She's physically good. She can wrestle. And you've seen maybe perhaps one of the best women's matches of all time is her and Sasha at NXT. That's phenomenal. And then you come from that group of four who are just amazing. I don't know. It was just, she didn't seem like your typical character. She wasn't, Charlotte. All right. She's a Flair. She wasn't Sasha, who comes out like, when she's heel, and that's typical heel. And even Becky coming out in her steampunk, when she would do that, it was just more like, hey, like a character. Whereas to me, Bayley felt like she was a fan who learned how to wrestle and was able to make it. And I think I just was like, this is more relatable to me than anything else.
What do you think happened then? What do you think happened? Because here we are. I can't remember when the hell she got called up to the main roster now. I'm going to try and find out as we talk. But she's not, she hasn't risen to the, that's a bit mean. 2016 she debuted, but she hasn't risen. I don't want to say she hasn't risen to the top, because that's not fair. She has, to a certain extent, but do you know what I mean? She didn't explode like I think a lot of people, including yourself. That impact that she had on you. I think there was an idea that could go far and wide, and yet it didn't. Do you think that's just because WWE didn't know how to push it? Because my thing with Bayley, when everybody asks me, I don't want to influence what you're going to say, but I kind of got this idea that Triple H pushed her in NXT as a wrestler for younger fans, whereas in WWE they pushed her like she was a kid. Do you know what I mean? Like that, it was almost like
exactly it. They took her gimmick basically and made it where, hey, she's relatable to this. And it was, in the beginning, she still was. And then it just became, again, this is typical WWE, where you allow a gimmick to go stale. There's only so much. Listen, I'm a huge fan, but there's even times where it's like, listen, she can't just hug everybody all the time. Eventually, you have to get angry, which she has over the past, I guess, year, maybe 9 months that that aggressive side has come out. So we're all waiting on the Bayley heel turn, at least that much of it. Or does she need a heel turn, or does she kind of go Kevin Owens-ish where it's just, I just want her to get out of that realm. And she said, no more hugs, all right, well, that's one aspect of it. You're at least trying to break the character. You still have your flailing, wiggling arm men, but you can't just drop the character. I get it. But I think that's what the WWE does. And that's the main problem, is they allow for things to get stale, or they just don't ever, they're into something one week and then they kind of forget about it. And you're like, well, what happened? Does this not exist anymore? All of a sudden, Sasha,
especially with Sasha and Bayley. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hate each other. Now we're going to be tag team champions and we're best friends again. Like, you gave everybody what they were waiting on, and then you just took it away. And I think that's the problem, and that's what they do. They give you something, and that's what kind of scares me about Bray, is that you're just going to let that. You're going to build them, and bring them out, and then people are going to be like, all right, we've seen this, but they're going to just continue to do it without freshening it up a bit. That's always the fear. And that was my thing with Finn. Finn, who is an amazing athlete, an amazing wrestler, who was your first Universal Champion, was obviously a reason you chose him to be that until he gets hurt. And you then just kind of, all right, he's high mid-card. We're not going to really push him anything. We're going to give him, hey, you know what? Here you go, Intercontinental Championship. Not going to really have you wrestle too much. And then I guess, I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know what happened, that little gap where he was just gone. Then you're not going to be around. Then we're going to come back, and I get he wants to go away, so that's why you drop the title off of him. But it's like, I feel like they misuse, and the person he dropped the title to, Shinsuke. He was on top of the world. He greatest entrance of all time. Then they go, we're going to heal him up and we're going to change it and ruin it, which I get it because he's a heel. Why should you get to enjoy his music? That's his, and I understood that. But then it's like, all right, you allowed it to go too long. When you're going to make this switch? And then it's like, well, people just fade off TV who are amazing wrestlers. To bring back people who you've been here. Why do I need to see? I love Randy Orton, but dude, it's been years. It's time to start allowing other people through. It's the same thing, Triple H. I love seeing Triple H wrestle, but I don't need to see him wrestle every WrestleMania for 25 minutes. It's just let guys in. You came up somehow. Let's do the same thing for others. And I feel like that's it. They have something that's good. They allow the fans to love it, and then they take it away. And that's what's really going to change.
Yeah, no, I think that's why we find ourselves in the position that we are that we are now, right? Because we didn't do that. We didn't build new stars. We tried, and the ones we tried we didn't really like, but WWE wanted to like them, so we had this back and forth with the fans. We all know the story. So, yeah, no, you're 100% true. Kind of I want to talk to you about AEW as well, because I know you mentioned that earlier when we were talking. It kind of ties into some other news that's come out, which is that, there was a big meeting about WWE moving to Fox in October. Obviously, we're going to get this weekly FS1 talk show. They're apparently going to do some big, apparently in September, the month before it launches, we're going to do some kind of basically like an hour-long advert introducing the wrestlers. So that's going to be cheesy as hell. And they're also going to put the wrestlers on a bus and drive them around America to say, hello, we're going to Fox. Apparently, Lex Luger, it didn't work with Lex Luger, so let's try it again. But I mean, the most interesting thing coming out of that information is that they're also discussing maybe putting NXT onto Fox as well. That would go onto FS1, and surprise, surprise, it would be Wednesday nights, which of course is the rumored day that Wednesday Night Dynamite, the AEW show, is going live. So, you've got this big hoo-ha. Now, I am an optimist, as anyone that listens knows. I like to look at the world in a glass half full, and I have probably overly done in my own head, put way too much of an excitement onto October. I just think if everything goes right, we're just going to have the best time ever. Like, it's just going to be awesome, and each week is going to be great. And also, I like the fact that WWE may put FS1 on Wednesday nights, because it makes no difference in 2019. People will watch whatever they want to watch. We have multiple devices, but I do like the fact they're trying to light the fires. Like, I'm all right with that. Sport and business and competition, it doesn't affect me. To me, it's just fun. I'm a fan. I have more choice, but do you see it the same way? Because I will say this, I like AEW a lot, and I think its upside is huge. I said that even before they'd done a show, but I'm also happy to say, once again, tying into the expectation argument we talked about earlier, Fight to Fest and Fight for the Fallen were decent shows. They were not amazing shows. I would say in many ways I preferred Extreme Rules to Fight for the Fallen. I know, heathen, burn me at the stake, die. That isn't me saying that Fight for the Fallen was a bad show. That's me saying that Fight for the Fallen was the equivalent of an Extreme Rules for AEW. And obviously, when we get to All Out in 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is, we'll go back up to being these blockbuster events with huge deals with Crown and World Champion, and it will feel exciting again. I'm okay with that. Not everything has to be massive. You look at New Japan right now with their G1 Climax. They have shows every day or there or thereabouts. Some are good, some are bad. That's just life. You can't put that much pressure on anything. But do you think, am I putting too much stock in October? Or when you do hear things like how big Fox are going to push this, they've told their other sports promotions to push WWE as a sport. Not to say that, it's not fake, but to say it's a sports-based product. And that obviously come October, we're going to lead into this big explosion for AEW too. I guess the better question is, what do you, as a fan, who, as you said, you've already mentioned to me, has also jumped on this AEW bandwagon, what do you want? Where do you want to be at the start of 2020 when this is all bedded in and we've had a few weeks?
I'm really hoping, I don't want the Monday Night Wars kind of thing again. So I really just hope it's, I think putting NXT up against it is that WWE's way of saying this is what you're the equivalent of to us. Where you only have to put Raw or SmackDown against you, we'll give you our developmental guys to compete against you, which I don't think is a smart idea. I know you have a million ways to view things, but if you're going to base it off their ratings and watching when it's on, I think going up against AEW is going to hurt because everybody's going to kind of want to jump on the AEW bandwagon right off the bat. So I think that's going to make NXT possibly, if it doesn't pull ratings, look not so great, even though we know NXT, to me, is in WWE is a superior product. It is, I don't know. And driving them around on the bus, that's just strange. People going to watch are people who are already watching. What are you going to gain by driving them around on the bus? You already have your fan base. You'll gain more because you're going to advertise it on regular TV, and you'll probably still, force things in. Maybe we'll get another halftime heat. Who knows? But I mean, you'll gain things that way. But I think that's silly. As far as AEW goes, I'm excited for them. At the moment, I'm skeptical because right now it's pretty. If you don't truly follow AEW and you're not doing, watching Being the Elite or any of the things, essentially, I mean, AEW right now is just doing dream bookings because they can. You don't have a storyline to truly follow. You're not on a weekly television show where you have to keep your body. You can't go crazy every single match like they can once a month on their pay-per-views. You're not going to get Darby Allin jumping backwards on the ring apron every week. That's going to just eventually look at Mick Foley. Look at these guys who did it. Look at the guys from ECW. You can't do that, especially now. So it's easy kind of for them because you're putting on a pay-per-view where, Kenny Omega is going to wrestle Chris Jericho. And that's just all right. New Japan did it. It was a dream booking. So you have dream bookings, Cody against, Dustin, those are dream bookings. You have to now maintain a storyline. So that's where I'm a little skeptical on AEW until, they're phenomenal. They have phenomenal talent. And then the whole thing becomes, hey, they're not happy with their contract in WWE. They're going to go to AEW. How big is AEW's roster going to be? You're going to do a 2-hour show. You're eventually going to get pigeonholed the same way you were in your other companies where there's going to be people who are established you're not going to wrestle. You can't have a 70-man roster and work on 2 hours. So I think that's where people don't. I've been trying to talk to people. I'm like, but they're just doing dream matches right now. You're putting dream independent in a sense matches together because you can. You have nothing to judge it. People don't have to pay attention to what's going on. They just will watch your pay-per-view, say the match was great. This is phenomenal. And then you can move on to booking a dream match again. I just want to see how they do it from a creative perspective once they're physically having to do it weekly. You got wrestlers running your company, which is not a bad thing, but your wrestlers running your company are all your top guys at the same time. Everybody gets sick and tired of seeing Shane on TV, but he's the owner's kid. He does have input in the company, is a part of the company. You're going to eventually go to the same thing where is Cody going to constantly be in the spotlight? Is Kenny going to constantly be in the spotlight? Are they going to kind of they have to, people are going to get fed up with it? I'm very curious to see how they run that because I don't think people have really spoken about that. You're all wrestlers running a company, which is great. You know what you want to see and you know what the fan base wants to see. you've been around it enough, especially the Rhodes. I mean, geez, they've been around their entire life. How to put it together, but it's just a matter of, can you do it consistently? You didn't have to do it then. You had people doing it for you. Now you have to do it. And then when people start getting angry that, hey, why isn't, this guy getting pushed? What about this guy? How come these guys don't wrestle? How do they handle it? So I'm very curious. So I honestly think come September, October, it should be great because you get to see something, hopefully try and pick its game back up because now it's on a much bigger stage for itself. And then you get to see something brand new from the ground up, and see how they handle things. I'm not a big fan of the NXT though against AEW thing. I think you should just, if you want to have ratings, and put yourself on your own night. Why go up against something where you can potentially lose? You don't want AEW to have the ratings, I guess. Is that what it comes down to? Because if you gave NXT Tuesday nights, did Raw Monday, NXT Tuesday, what is SmackDown going to be Friday? Or whenever, then you do NXT, AEW has their Wednesday spot. You have 3 nights where you can pull ratings as opposed to losing one night and then saying, well, NXT is not what we thought it was. Because that's what they'll do. They'll just blame NXT.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and vice versa as well. That's the risk about putting NXT there. What if AEW can start going, hey, man, we outdraw a WWE show? You can do that. You can absolutely do that. Going back to what you said about the Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega thing, I do think that's a really interesting chat because, I don't mind if Cody Rhodes and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks book themselves on top, as long as it all makes sense. Do you know what I mean? My problem with this has kind of been misconstrued. It's my fault because I push it too hard. But my problem with Shane McMahon being featured on TV all the time isn't the fact that Shane McMahon is featured on TV all the time. It's just that most of it, I'm like, we don't need to be doing it this much. That's my issue. It doesn't tie in to what would make sense from a storyline perspective. And then, yes, that's when all of a sudden your bias towards he's Vince McMahon's kid and blah, 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 blah comes in. And I mean this. Somebody always criticizes me when I say this. It's not the same. I'm not saying that if we use Stone Cold Steve Austin the same amount we use Shane McMahon, we'd all start hating it. I'm saying if you took what Stone Cold Steve Austin was, there is still a limit. And when you get to that limit and you cross it, even someone as mighty and as amazing as Stone Cold Steve Austin would, law of diminishing returns, right? Everybody has a line. Obviously, Stone Cold's is miles away from Shane's, but it's the same thing. So if Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes can find a way to make themselves the center of attention, but when I tune in each and every week, it's really entertaining. I'm all good with that. But I also kind of believe, and I'm more than happy to be told I'm wrong in a year's time, they have the self-awareness to understand that's a really bad idea. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Well, I hope so. I hope they do, because the thing is, they've never had to run that. My fear is that they run a company, and once you realize how things going, all right, are you guys going to be? I mean, listen, I don't knock them for making them. They're top guys. I would take them in WWE in a heartbeat. So them placing themselves at that spot. Obviously, I mean, Kenny Omega is maybe possibly literally the best in the world. And I don't see that. This thing is it going to be that they're going to come out and cut promos talking about things coming up? Where now, all right, well, you've already wrestled tonight, and now you're coming out talking about other things for other things, where you're pulling time away from other guys who could actually be out wrestling. That's my fear. I don't think they're not going to know what they're doing. I just don't want it to be where they're pulling time because they're on TV to, hey, we're going to come out here and talk about what the business is doing. Now we're going to come out here and wrestle. And now we're going to come out and we've been on TV for 35 minutes or 45 minutes out of the 2 hours we're allotted. So now, hey, the rest of these guys have an hour really to go, including commercials, and so that's my fears. I just don't want it to get pigeonholed in that whole situation. Shane's thing, listen, I don't mind him being on TV. It is just an overabundance of
it. It's overkill. Oh, yes. It's overkill, absolutely.
And Steve Austin, not for nothing, did get stale when he healed, when he was hurt and he had to kind of heel turn.
Did, right?
That got stale. Yeah. I didn't want to see, first of all, why is Steve Austin running away from people? This would never happen. Second of all, it's just, all right, we get it. You're going to sing Kumbaya. I loved it. It's funny, but bring me to, we love Steve Austin. When he's healthy enough to wrestle, bring him back out, but I don't need to see him if he's just going to sit backstage and talk to Kurt Angle. It became...
Well, I was going to say, I think even if people loved that, and I actually probably heard more than the people that did, the argument is always, look, watch the ratings. Go look at the ratings when WWE did that. They tanked because by and large, nobody wanted to see it. Nobody wanted to see Steve Austin that way, no matter what you thought of it, and you're allowed to hate it, you're allowed to like it, whatever. They didn't want to see it. They just didn't. And the proof is right there in statistics. And obviously, talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin in how many days? 4 days as we're recording this. We'll go live on Friday. So basically, after the weekend, we are getting the Raw reunion show. Stone Cold Steve Austin is on it. Hulk Hogan is on it. You think that would be enough, but no, we're getting 35 other wrestlers as well. They better have a big plan for this because you are going to pop a rating. And if you don't do something to keep whoever comes back attention so that when those stars aren't on it in 7 days, this is a massive waste of time. There is no point having a great rating 1 week and going back to the status quo the week after. That doesn't help anybody, or at least it doesn't in my world. Like the whole point right now should be doing whatever we can to get people back invested. And that I can think the only reason you want to have all these people on your show is because if you want to see Austin, he's there. If you want to see Hogan, he's there. Sean Waltman, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Shawn Michaels, Booker T, whoever. But at least one of them. I mean, I think you got to do something with Kevin Owens and Steve Austin. I mean, as a pairing, I think you've got to do that. And I think whichever wrestler, not Kurt Angle, we've seen it, but whatever wrestler is healthy enough to take a move, a big heel. I mean, I'd go for Drew McIntyre, but whoever, I don't care. A big heel has to take them out. In fact, Raw should probably end. I mean, if someone said, Miller, pick 2 people, I'd say Drew McIntyre takes out Hulk Hogan because then you've established Drew McIntyre as one of the biggest guys in the company.
I was going to go Bray takes out Hulk Hogan. Lights go dark.
That was my other one. Yeah. But if you do that, man, you're going to send shockwaves through the internet, which always helps in 2019. The Young Bucks, the masters of that. But also, you're really going to have to do a shit job after that to make Bray Wyatt feel like a not a cool wrestler. Because he bloody attacked Hulk Hogan. Regardless of what you think about Hulk Hogan, he's always going to be Hulk Hogan. He attacked Hulk Hogan with that mask and left him laying. And I know there's egos in wrestling. Check them. Let's use this to really elevate someone. And I think if you pick the right guy,
it's got to be somebody big. It can't be like Kevin Nash. It can't. I mean, you need to have like almost an icon. Like if it was like The Rock was out there, or Steve Austin, or Hulk Hogan, you need to have somebody who was the company at one point, and to show that. I mean, I wouldn't. It's got to me. It would have to be Hogan, just because he was Hulk Hogan. And plus I'm fairly confident at this point, a lot of people really wouldn't mind seeing Hulk Hogan get beat up. So, he was Hulk Hogan. You can't take that away. Like when I was at WrestleMania and I saw him come out for all the crap and all the thing that he's gone through, and I have never seen Hulk Hogan like live in a sense. So that's the closest I get to seeing him in person. I popped. Who doesn't? So to me, he's still Hulk Hogan. So if he'll be out there in his yellow and red and the lights go out, some Real Americans playing, and all of a sudden the music stops and Bray takes him out, and that's how Raw closes, you've made Bray the biggest thing. You've pushed him, so now you got to maintain pushing him, and you've done it. But yeah, I'm a little nervous though, because now you're giving 35 guys all this TV time, which again, taking away from chance, from these people who should be wrestling. But I get you want to you have to have one of these shows every so often, but you need to do something because you got to maintain. So it's got to be somebody who's going to be on. Obviously, Hogan's not going to come back. These guys aren't going to come back unless they have one of these old timers who's making his weird "I'm coming back" return again, for a little while. But you got to have it where you give Bray, because I Drew McIntyre is great, and I love how he works, but I really feel like they need to just establish him in one direction, which they haven't done. I think Bray bringing what you just brought, bringing in, that would be your Undertaker moment. That would be the lights go dark, and and I would think it would have to be even like The Rock. The Rock is still he's The Rock. He's too famous. Like at this point, like it's just Steve Austin. I'd rather do like exactly what you said. Put him with Kevin Owens. Let him just stun the entire place for 5 minutes. You would make everybody happy. Have Hulk Hogan close the show. Have Bray come out, the lights go out, and take out Hulk Hogan, and you just close. You don't even say anything. You do what they used to do, and you just go to dark, and that's the show. And now I want to watch next week. That's it, because it's a guy who I know is going to be on him. What are we going to do with him? That would be amazing.
Do you know what I'd do next week as well? I wouldn't put Bray Wyatt on the show. Genuinely. No. That's what I do. And just leave the questions. Talk about him and air that clip and have everybody else mention it, but he doesn't turn up. And you're like, well, where the hell has he gone then? I think that would be absolutely wonderful.
They can even do that going forward. You could turn the lights out going forward and have nothing happen because it's the fact that it could. You know, it's almost
exactly
like how Sting was. You know.
Oh man, they should just go to the Sting. Just use that playbook. Talking about WCW, yeah, just do that. I mean, it worked perfectly.
Go to Sting.
I think the reason The Rock and Stone Cold don't work as well is that, let's say Bray Wyatt does it on them, you want to see a match. That's the issue. Then you want to see Stone Cold, but it's never going to happen. Whereas no one actually believed that Hulk Hogan is going to come back to fight Bray Wyatt. Like, it just seems so, so ludicrous that nobody will actually want that.
Exactly. That's like the Batista Ric Flair thing. You knew Ric Flair wasn't going to wrestle Batista.
Exactly.
So,
yeah,
but it built up.
Yeah. And I mean, the problem we have with all of this is that I would imagine, I'm just speculating, Hulk Hogan's ego is too big to ever allow this to happen. But who knows, right? Who knows? And the interesting is, you drop Kevin Nash's name. He's probably the one that wouldn't do it the most. We all know how Kevin Nash sees himself. My word. One day I'll tell my Kevin Nash story. And I don't think I'm allowed to tell it yet, but one day I'll tell it, and people will be like, "Yep, that sounds like Kevin Nash." I'll be like, "Doesn't it just? Doesn't it just?" No, exactly. Kevin Nash does not understand the modern world. And on that note, Tim, somehow we've smashed through an hour. I don't know how the hell we did that. That just flew by. But that was just a very, very interesting and good conversation, my friend. So I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. It was awesome.
It was good. Is there anything else you want to throw out there or pimp out? You don't have to, but I like to give people the opportunity.
I could throw out, Hicks89 on Twitter, HICKS 89 on Twitter. That's really it.
There you go. Well, there's the man. If he has said anything you don't like or you want to agree with, that is where you can go yell at him. Yeah. But in the meantime, I want to thank everyone for listening. If you want to come on the podcast, you can. Patreon.com/Simon Miller 316. I got wrestling merch, simonmiller.bigcartel.com. I will use this to mention I am a professional wrestler. I had some guy send me a tweet this week going, mate, like, you clearly lift weights. Why the hell aren't you a wrestler? And I was like, I am a wrestler. It's just like, I thought I'd done a good job in advertising that. Maybe I haven't. So I am a wrestler. And again, you can get all updates on my Twitter, like I say. And simonmiller.bigcartel.com. I sell wrestling merchandise because that's what wrestlers do. And I like to try and, live the lifestyle. Other than that, hit up my YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Middle Report Rules. By the time you've heard this, I've probably got through 70,000 subscribers, which, given that I do not treat my YouTube channel like how you're meant to, like there are rules and I ignore all the rules, I just want to thank everybody who joins me and has supported that endeavor, my word. And of course, over on What Culture Wrestling, you get ups and downs, you get wise lists, all those kind of stuff. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend. And yeah, the next time we'll chat, we'll see what Raw has done with their reunion show. And hopefully we have a really cool Bray Wyatt story to tell. Or we'll just be really disappointed. Either is good. I will speak to you then.